And I love that you shared that has changed the trajectory for you and how you've approached this.
One of the things they share a lot of the time when they talk about getting into tech, getting into cybersecurity, is that it is not easy. But for most of us, we had to go through rejections. We had to go through getting stuck, learning things that we didn't know before. We had to go through challenges. But when I came across this guy who was a lead cloud engineer, he asked me a specific question: what are you doing to stand out? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. He said, there are so many people with degrees. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, a degree was your ticket to a successful career. Today it is not. You need to do other things to stand out in this industry. And I took that and I was like, wow. I know that when I was starting, I needed to stand out, and I knew that this is the way I could do it. My peers who are in university were not getting certifications, and I was. People applying for graduate roles, most of them don't have certifications. They rely on their degree. Maybe they do internships. I didn't do an internship. I'm like, how else can I stand out? Certifications, right?
It's not about the person having the right answer necessarily. It's about the person understanding the technology. I want to be a cloud engineer, but then you go for kind of the AZ900, and then you go for the AWS fundamentals, and then you go for the Google fundamental one. I don't know what it is, but then you're still not making yourself employable to a specific role in the industry. So you said you would not have been able to get that job without having that certification. Hi friends, today we'll be talking about all things cloud security with my amazing guest, Caleb Oni. Now, Caleb is a cloud security engineer. He's a content creator and he's the host of an amazing podcast. Caleb brings a wealth of knowledge in cloud security, cloud computing, and the technology space as a whole. He holds expertise in Azure, Microsoft 365, and Intune. So he's definitely making waves in this tech space of ours. This is Cybersecurity Uncomplicated with Cyber Queen, where we break barriers one chat at a time. No one has the exact roadmap, but together we're challenging stereotypes. We'll show you that cybersecurity is for everyone. We're bold, smart, and unapologetically diverse. So I'm super happy to be chatting with you, Caleb. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Venicia. I'm so excited to be speaking to you. It's going to be fun.
Definitely. So let's start off with a more kind of personal or deep question, depending on what you want to share here. But can you tell us a little bit about who is Caleb?
Caleb is, like you said, a cloud engineer, cloud security more specifically. Caleb is a learner. Caleb is, when I speak about my career, like online and on like podcasts and on my YouTube channel, I really talk about the ups and downs. So I consider myself honest about the struggles. Like I have videos on my channel that talk about failed certifications, being let go from a job, giving people the reality of working in tech. So like my online Caleb this is just the truth. This is how my tech career went. It's not been easy. This is how it goes. I also feel like I'm genuinely someone who is not afraid to make mistakes. I make so many mistakes, and I feel like now when it's mistakes online, it's kind of public mistakes, which I still share. So I think genuinely I'm someone who is a learner. I share about what I learn online, and I'm not afraid to make mistakes. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's absolutely so interesting to me, and such a different perspective on sharing online. Because I mean, you're so right. Like if you're sharing online and you make mistakes essentially in front of a number of people that you can't even control. You have no control over. You've just made the brave choice to put yourself out there and then like make these mistakes, which I think is super brave. But I mean, I also like specifically that you shared like the transparent journey, right? Because not a lot of people do share the transparent journey, and not a lot of people will tell you when they failed or when they've succeeded. So I'm curious to know what prompted you to share the journey as transparently as you do.
Honestly, well, as transparently, I don't know. My inspiration for starting content was just other content creators. And more specifically, Day Cyberworks. A lot of people know him. You know, he's a cybersecurity content creator on YouTube. And I saw one of his videos. I was like, I need to do that. I need to do it. And so I did it. And then I've just kept doing it since. And since then, I've even managed to collaborate with Day, which is amazing, and so many other great people. But I think the reason I share it so honestly would just be like, I'm trying to give people the reality. And there's a lot of creators who are out here just like being honest about this journey. I'm so grateful to have had the podcast where a lot of people have shared. And one of the things they share a lot of the time when they talk about getting into tech, getting into cybersecurity, is that it is not easy. If you think you're just going to get in, waltz in, it's going to be super easy and super, like, there's going to be no issues, and it's going to be smooth, you might be in the lucky 5% or 10%. But for most of us, we had to go through rejections. We had to go through getting stuck, learning things that we didn't know before. We had to go through challenges. And so giving people the reality of those challenges is something that I endeavor to do on my channel and with the guests that I have on the podcast as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And major shout out to Day as well. Also a good friend of mine. And he's had such good success in cybersecurity and also shared so openly. With that, let's talk a little bit about cloud. Now, you are specifically focused, I think, overall into the Microsoft Azure side firstly, and then into cloud computing, and then more specifically cloud security, right? So how did that come about?
Yes. So Azure, I say Azure, I feel like people in America, like they don't like when I say Azure. They're like, say Azure, but I'm tired of it. I'm going to stick with Azure. Getting into Azure, I have a video about this, and my decision was based on a few things. The main thing was the fact that I always use Microsoft products. Since I was growing up, I always used Word, I always used Microsoft Excel, I always used PowerPoint and those, simple tools, those productivity tools. And so when it came to choosing a provider, I was like, I should use Microsoft. I always have Microsoft laptops. I'm used to the Microsoft OS. I understand this stuff so well already. So for me, it was like, I have to go with Microsoft's product for cloud because it just makes sense. The integration it has with all of the Microsoft tools and services, it just made so much sense for me to go with this. And of course, I went with it with my learning, and the first role I got was an Azure-based role. So it continued in that direction. But to dive into like why I chose cloud specifically, cloud computing for my career journey and my career choice, this all started with my mentor. And I've told this story, but it all started when I was just in my community, like at church, and there's a guy who goes to the same church as me, and he was a lead cloud engineer, right? At this time, I was in my second year of university. I didn't really know what I was trying to get into or what I was trying to do. But when I came across this guy who was a lead cloud engineer, he asked me specific questions. And by the way, I was studying business computing. So there were so many areas I could have gone into. And so he asked me, he was like, what are you trying to get into? I was like, yeah, I don't know, man. I really don't know, something tech. I was in second year. I didn't really know. And then he asked me, what are you doing to stand out? And I was like,
I love that question.
Like, I don't know. I don't know. He said, there are so many people with degrees. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, a degree was your ticket to a successful career. Today, it is not. You need to do other things to stand out in this industry. And I took that and I was like, wow. I actually started to get some sort of anxiety. Like, I need to be doing something to stand out. And he recommended that I take certain certifications, starting with the CompTIA Plus, and then there were others. But just following his footsteps, him being a lead cloud engineer, asking questions about cloud, then doing my own research, then applying to cloud roles, which I failed interviews for and needed to learn more about. And that kind of process just led me in this direction of, I'm learning Azure, I'm doing this certification on Azure. I got my first Azure role and I haven't looked back since then. It's always been Microsoft focused and cloud focused since then. Although I've gone a bit into cloud security, but always on the cloud path since that time.
I think that's so awesome to hear. And I always speak about the value of a mentor or just someone that you can speak with about your journey that's already in this space. Because I think even for me being in cybersecurity and cloud security, that is like my first question to anyone that I speak with that is asking me questions about their journey. And, they're looking to get into tech and they're already on the way and they may be doing a degree or like a boot camp even, and then like, yeah, sure, that's great, education is great, but then how are you going to be different, how are you going to stand out? So I think that is it really is that important even as a whole, because I think from the sounds of it, it definitely sounds like it made such a difference for you on your journey and how you were able to actually get into the workforce.
Definitely made such a difference. And that mentor, honestly, is super important. A lot of people feel like I don't have a mentor around me, but honestly, like some people consider me a mentor without even, knowing me. Literally doing your research can be a form of mentorship. Like literally watching people who have done it, who lay out the steps in videos online is a path for not only inspiration, but actually knowing how to navigate things. So I just put that out there as you need to be like involving yourself, listening to the right things, listening to the right people online who have done it, done what you want to do, and you want to do that. Listen to them; they know what they're talking about. So yeah, that's just what I would say about like mentorship.
I really like that. So to ask a follow-up question then on that, I mean, you said from, that discussion, you've already kind of set your sights into Azure and Microsoft. Then you had the discussion and then you got the kind of input into your journey. But what allowed you to kind of drown out the noise around you of everything else? Because I find that a lot of people today, especially in like my online communities and things like that, they are very overwhelmed by the amount of resources that's out there and by the number of opportunities, right? Even if you look in security, I mean, even just in cloud, you have analysis, engineering, you have different providers, you have all these things. But what was kind of the catalyst for you to specifically focus on that one thing? Or was it just like a personal decision?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think the answer I would say, how do you drown out the noise of everything that's going on in tech? Like you said, there's so much. There is so much technology. There's so many tools. There are different cloud providers. How do you decide this is what I'm doing? This is what I'm going for? For me, I decided through one, research, and two, it's kind of the path that after I did my research, I just went down this path because I was applying for roles in tech. I got interviews and I kind of saw like those job descriptions, and in those job descriptions, I can see the key skills that I need to know and understand to work in this role. Okay, what keeps showing up? What keeps popping up to make me think, oh, this is what I need to be learning. This is so important. It's on like 5 different job descriptions that I've seen. This is something super important. And for me, one of those things was Azure. Not to say that there's not different things that come up, because loads of jobs have requirements for AWS, loads of jobs have requirements for Python or like different things. I think for me, it is focusing on certain things that fit the target role that you're going for. Like for me, my target role is cloud, and it's Azure cloud. I came to that point through research and mentoring, and now I need to set a plan to learn and understand this stuff, right? And so that plan includes learning things like PowerShell. It includes learning Azure itself. It includes maybe learning something about Microsoft 365 and the tools involved in that. And it includes learning about maybe Microsoft Defender and that sort of thing. So once you understand the role you're going for, you can look at that role and see what are the common skills in that role, and then create a plan around getting that skill, right? So it takes research, it takes mentoring, it takes learning the fundamentals, being a generalist at the very beginning, and then diving into the thing that you decide, this is what I want to know. This is what I need to learn. All right. Now I can specialize. Now I can look at the exact skills I need and that sort of thing. So I hope that in a nutshell sums it up.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just thinking here that's putting such method to kind of the madness in a sense, because you really, just by what you've shared, you've helped someone on a way to streamline this, right? Because a lot of people are confused as to how to streamline this. And that's why I'm also a huge advocate for people talking about it and sharing the knowledge about it, because other people have done this, like you said, you saw from day and then you were like, I got to do this. Okay. So now how do we go about this? And then you spoke with your mentor, like other people have done this. And so if you pay really close attention and you actually use the resources, like implement the tips, so you gave strategic tips now. And to anyone listening or watching, implementing those tips is what's actually going to help, as opposed to just listening to it and then a tick in the box like, okay, I've listened to it, right? Yeah. I think there's a major gap from kind of receiving information and then like actually implementing it.
So true. So true.
So let's talk a little bit about cloud certifications here. So now you have obtained a bunch of skills along the way. You've obtained a few certifications along the way. So can you take us through kind of what that's been like? How did you decide on taking the actual cert versus just gaining the skill? How did you distinguish between those two? And what was that journey like?
Oh, now this is an interesting one, because people talk about certifications all the time, right? And some people are talking about certifications and saying, nah, certs don't matter. Like just you need to learn the skills, right? Others are saying, you get as many certs as you can, collect the badges, and you'll look more professional. There is a balance between these two things. And you need to kind of look at this and say, okay, where am I at? Because maybe you have a degree in cybersecurity and you don't need a CompTIA A+ or even a Security Plus. But maybe you don't have a degree and you're going through boot camps, or you're trying to do the whole self-learning, independent learning. Certifications might just be your degree in that case. So you need to look at where you are and what's going to be important to you. I know that when I was starting, I needed to stand out, and I knew that this is the way I could do it. My peers who are in university were not getting certifications, and I was. So when it came time to getting a job, I was like, yes, I'm ready. I have something on my CV that others do not have, that my other peers do not have. People applying for graduate roles, most of them don't have certifications. They rely on their degree. Maybe they do internships. I didn't do an internship. I'm like, how else can I stand out? Certifications, right? So it really depends on the person. But the way it kind of came about for me was I did the CompTIA A+. I needed a foundational thing because honestly, my degree did not teach me enough to be an engineer. It didn't teach me how to operate as an engineer. It didn't teach me details about things you need to know when working in this industry. And the CompTIA A+ did that, right? And so when it came to kind of learning about cloud, I was like, I need to learn more about cloud. And then there was a cloud fundamentals certification. I was like, this is perfect for me learning about cloud, having that on my CV along with my degree and CompTIA A+, to putting me in a better position to get some entry-level cloud roles over others. So honestly, as a whole, when I talk about certifications, I do, like, my name's Caleb Oni certified. Like, I do see benefit in certifications, right? I think there is a place for them. And I think people talk about them so much that sometimes they kind of discourage it. Of course, there's a difference between a badge collector and someone who is getting the right certifications to validate their skills and get into the job market. A badge collector is someone who just stocks up certifications without knowing and understanding the technology behind it. And the difference between that and someone who is getting certifications to put on their CV to show that they're a good candidate who understands a certain thing and can back that up with conversation about that certain thing is night and day. Okay, so we need to focus on being this person and not the badge collector who wants to have as many certs on their CV. I know you said something else in that question that I didn't answer, but I hope that kind of answers the question.
That definitely answers the question. And I mean, I completely agree with your sentiments there. It's all about how intentional you are with the certs that you are gaining along the path that you're targeting, right? Like for you, you're saying your target was specifically cloud computing and it was Azure. And so you were extremely specific. I mean, Just to give an example of kind of a mistake in the way of obtaining certifications here would be like, yeah, I want to be a cloud engineer, but then you go for kind of the AZ900, and then you go for the AWS fundamentals, and then you go for the Google fundamental one. I don't know what it is, but then you're still not making yourself employable to a specific role in the industry because you haven't been specific, right? And so getting kind of the 3 entry level certs of each cloud provider, that will not help along the journey versus focusing on like your AZ900 and then maybe doing 104 to show that you actually know how to be an administrator and then going from there. I think that's like a very intentional approach to getting into the industry and actually getting the job, which I fully agree with. For me specifically, and I always talk about it, certs have been super valuable along the journey. So I completely agree with your sentiments there, but it's intentional certs at the right time when you have the right amount of experience to even be able to talk about it. Or if it's foundational certs, make sure you can back it up with skills, right? To be able to have the conversation, not just kind of ramp through the certs.
So true, so true. And yeah, like that was kind of my path. You know, I was lucky enough to be able to get into a role with just a fundamental certification, and then like in cloud, and then within that role, then picking up, you know, AZ104, and because I was working as a junior administrator, and then picked up that cert because I was in a place that kind of, you know, they like people to have certs to back up their knowledge. And be able to, you know, understand the thing, not just through, you know, working on it and figuring it out, but studying it as well. So I got the opportunity and I was able to, you know, get the AZ104. And for those who watch my channel, you've seen so many videos on that certification and the role of Azure administrator itself. And so yeah, just like you said, I like what you said about, you know, the method to it. And also within that method, doing the labs behind it and actually, you know, playing around with the stuff. If you're not working on it, then having, you know, logged into the Azure portal, built a virtual machine, let's say you're doing the AZ104, you know, created one and, you know, played around with it, played around with the network security groups or played around with like a load balancer or anything like that, right? And being able to explain what you've done. So when you come to the interview, you have that badge. Okay, since you have that badge, you should be able to answer these questions, right? So they're going to test you on that and you should be able to give the answers because you've done it and not just studied it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about you getting that first job. So I've heard now you've got the job with the one foundational certification and then you kind of ramped up your certs and skills in the job. So how were you able to get that job? What was the application process like? And what was it like for you doing the job hunting and then finally getting the job?
Yeah, I mean, this is such a long story because I will shorten it, I promise. But the way this happened, right? First cloud job. Okay. So like I said before, I had a role previously. It didn't work out. I went back to, you know, studying for a little bit. And then I was like, and that previous role that didn't work out was not cloud related. After that, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to focus on cloud right now. Okay. So like I went all in on trying to find a cloud role. And the process was, the way this happened really was that I was looking for roles. I'd been rejected from roles in cloud, lots of rejections. And I finally found a role. And the way I found this was actually through a friend, right? And this is the importance of networking, not only with mentors and people senior to you, but your peers as well. People underestimate how much of value peer networking brings, right? So I had a friend who I used to talk to this stuff about, and he knew I wanted to get into Azure. He knew I'd done these at 900. He knew I was interested in this stuff. And he sent me a role. I would have never found this if he didn't send it to me. He sent me a role for a junior administrator. I was like, Caleb, I think you'd be perfect for this. You should apply for this. I was like, okay. He sent it to me. And I was like, wow, no, you're right. This seems like this seems like exactly what I'm looking for. And so, yeah, I applied. I got the interview. The first interview was, and they were looking for graduates. roles, which was kind of perfect as well. The first interview went great. The second interview was a technical interview. It went great as well. They didn't expect me to have worked on this stuff because they were looking for a junior and they were looking for graduates, but they were expecting me to understand Azure. They were expecting me to know about VNet peering is, to know what virtual machines are, to know how to create a virtual machine, how to set up the subnets and the IPs and whatever. They were expecting me to understand this stuff. And the only way I did understand that was through AZ900. Honestly, I don't think if I hadn't done it, I would have got that role. I don't think if I hadn't done that simple, fundamental Azure certification, I would have got my first job. And so this was the process, right? I got my friend send me over a role. I applied. I passed through the interviews with great communication skills, but also just knowing that fundamental parts about Azure and having, gone onto the free trial and played around with it a little bit. And that was it. That was enough. And I got the junior role. And from there, within 3 months of working as a junior, I was no longer a junior, which was amazing. And yeah, I was at an associate mid-level, and that's where it went from there. That role was not easy. I've spoken about that as well. It was a role that was full of so many projects, right? And so in about 10 months of working in this role, I developed so much. And I can't say in other roles I developed in the way I did in this particular role. It was a role that I had so much to work on. I had so much to do, and that it was stressful, but honestly, I can say, wow, look at the engineer I am because of what I went through in that period of time, which is amazing. But yeah, that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
That's super cool. That's super cool. And it shows the power of networking. And I love listening to how you talk about kind of the interview process here, right? Because that's really like step 2 is really the step where you will be kind of fumbling and be caught out if you are kind of a cert collector or badge collector versus if you're actually someone who intentionally is trying to target specific credentials and skills and then get there. Because in the technical interview, I mean, if you can't answer those questions, even if they don't expect you to have 100% the correct answer, because a lot of the times that's what I find, at least in the security technical interviews. It's not about the person having the right answer necessarily. It's about the person understanding the technology, right? And having said that, the credential that they have should allow them to know certain things. And so therefore, that's what we will ask you about. And it's understanding and being able to talk about those foundational concepts that you learned while taking the certification. Yeah. So would you then say you would not, so you said you would not have been able to get that job without having that certification. And then do you think that's the thing that put you miles apart when it came to your peers and the other people that you basically kind of left uni with? Right. So that was the biggest factor for you. Okay.
I think it was. And I don't think that I got the job because I had the certification. They said, oh, he's got the AZ900. We need to hire him. Absolutely not. It was the knowledge I gained from it and the fact that I could explain this stuff, that I could understand this stuff, that I played around with this stuff. That's what put me ahead of others. And even when I got the job, I asked my manager, oh, like, how come, why did I, get this job ahead of others? And he said one of the reasons was the fact that you had the AZ900 and were able to explain lots of Azure stuff when a lot of the other people we interviewed were not and did not have that same level of understanding of Azure as you did, which was incredible. And one of the things that the role sort of had in terms of training when you got the role was you're going to do the AZ900, you do the AZ104, you do the AZ500. That was part of their training. And so I was the only one who had done it already. I had already started the training for the job that I was going to go on to, which was like, it was just perfect. Definitely put me ahead. And what was the second part of your question? I actually forgot.
Yeah, no, I was just asking like, what was it that really like put you miles ahead in your opinion, and I think you got it there with just being able to have the skills in addition to the AZ900, because that part I actually didn't catch the first time around. So it was getting the cert, which would have been part of your learning path in the organization, but then also having the skills before is what helped you. Would you say it was hard for you as a complete beginner to gain the skills, or did you kind of have an understanding just by going through the materials?
Listen, you can have an understanding through going through the material, of course, but until you've done it, and I don't mean you need to like fully, you know, like go through a project like a company would, or, you know, provision some infrastructure of like a large bank. I don't mean that. I mean, you need to go into the portal and play around. You need to play around with the labs that are on those courses, because there are labs on those courses. And if you're just trying to do this, you're probably skipping over those labs, just watching it and thinking, yeah, I know it. But no,
we
you
see
actually need to try it out. we can see you. We're watching you. There are labs on those courses that you need to go and log into the portal and use the free trial and do yourself. These things have free trials. Like Azure has a free trial. You can actually be doing something on Azure right now, but you're watching this podcast. I'm joking.
Keep watching it.
Keep watching, but you can actually like go into this stuff and have actually, you know, done it. Play around. When I say play around, I mean try something. Try the labs you're doing, right? Don't just watch someone do the lab and not do it with them, right? That's something that I kind of stress that people should do.
Yeah, 100%. So now I have a few more questions to ask you, but I'm going to pause here and I'm going to go to a section that we call rapid fire over here. So what rapid fire is that I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and you have like a few seconds to answer with the first thing that comes to your mind.
Let's go.
All right. So the first thing is, if you could do this again without any background context knowledge, Azure or AWS? Which one?
Azure.
Okay.
Easy.
What is one tech gadget? It can be for life, for work, for whatever, that you can't live without.
My phone. iPhone. I use that for so much. Like YouTube, for like I started this whole YouTube channel. I went from 1 to 3,000 subscribers with my iPhone. Like iPhone. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So you're not an Android person then. I don't know
Absolutely
what we're
not.
doing here today. So fine. No, I'm joking. I'm actually also an iPhone person.
Okay.
So yeah. What is the most interesting service that you've used in the cloud, or what's your favorite thing to do in the cloud when working on cloud computing?
I like MFA and conditional access. I would say, yeah, like locking people in and out of their computers. I'm joking. No, the ability to just ensure that people's devices or their accounts are secure. You can log in from this location, but you can't log in from there. I think that's pretty fun and pretty cool. So I'd say conditional access MFA.
Nice.
Sorry, am I supposed to like just say it? Because I'm explaining.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. So what is your favorite beverage and meal in a day when you are like super busy in your tech stuff? What do you eat and drink?
My favorite would be jollof rice. I'm a Nigerian. Super malt. If you know, you know. Jollof rice, super malt, like chicken.
I know jollof rice. I don't know super malt.
The people watching that know.
The people will know.
They know.
Okay, cool. I'm going to Google it after this now. I also want to know. And then what is your go-to podcast, informational content platform for cybersecurity updates, specifically like news and updates?
That's I can't quick fire that one. It's so hard. Because you said cybersecurity updates, just YouTube things pop up on my home screen, and I just see, you know, lots of news on there from other YouTubers or from like the news itself. So I would just say on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just for the record, I agree with that. It's like super easy just because your feed is already curated for the stuff that you're interested in watch. And
Yeah.
so if you continue to like search for the latest cybersecurity news and updates, and especially from people who break it down, right? I really like that as well. All right. If you were not a cloud engineer or a cloud techie, what would you be? Or what would you do?
I would be a basketball player.
Wow.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
like a moment of silence. I was even like speechless there. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
So
I mean, I wouldn't have gone to the NBA, but yeah, I would probably just have tried to do that.
interesting. Like, I would be boring and be a lawyer, but okay. I mean, no, I like lawyers. Just saying.
Oh, all the lawyers watching.
Let's move back. Well done on the rapid fire. You did great. Very happy that I have to go and search up something after this. But yes, let me ask you something interesting around your experience thus far and working in cloud computing thus far. So from an industry and project perspective, or maybe just the industry as a whole, where do you see cloud computing going in like the next 1 to 3 years? And what do you think people need to focus on as they're trying to get into the industry?
Yeah, so I actually made a recent video talking about learning about Gen AI and AI in general. I don't. Reason I say this is because, as I said, AI needs to be hosted as well, and it's going to be hosted using a cloud and using cloud products. And all of our cloud products have had AI implemented into them in some way, shape, or form. Azure and 365 have their co-pilots now, and I'm sure all the others have, their own forms of AI getting in there. So along with learning cloud, learning a bit of, artificial intelligence and what it is and how it works is not only good for your understanding of the cloud itself, but it is also good to have on your CV that you understand this thing. Because when you talk about the higher ups and the executives and the conversations they're having in there, this year, last year, they're talking Gen AI, Gen AI, Gen AI. How are we going to use Gen AI, Gen AI? So you being able to demonstrate that you have an understanding of this thing to a certain level is going to put you in a position where they're going to say, okay, yeah, this guy knows something about this thing that we're talking about every day. And so I wouldn't say like you need to know everything about it, or like, I mean, you'd be an AI engineer, not really a cloud engineer. But I would say having a good understanding and doing some learning in this area would be important. Whether that is prompt engineering or whether it is prompt engineering as in understanding how to work with the co-pilots in the Gen AI production tools and GPT, or whether it is some other thing, some other more detailed, complex tool that you're going to use with it. But I think in the next few years, as it is happening now, AI and Gen AI is going to continue to be used more and more with our cloud services. And so understanding how to use it with prompt engineering and a little bit more in depth about AI as a whole is going to be helpful for anyone.
Yeah, I agree. For personal and business, right? Because, like you said, like in the boardrooms, in the board meetings with CEOs, like they're like AI, and but they don't know any, like they don't really know how it
Yeah.
works. They're just like, yeah, we got to use artificial intelligence to advance our business. And if you can be the person to be like, yeah, this is how you use cloud together with AI capabilities to advance your business, then of course that's like massive. So what is one thing or two or three things maybe that you wish more people would know or be aware of when it comes to cloud computing?
Yeah, I think it's easy. I think cloud as a whole, people don't know what it is. Straight up. Like, if you're not in tech, even some people that are in tech, and you ask them, oh no, you tell them, they ask you, oh, what do you do? I said, I'm a cloud engineer. Like, what is that? Yeah, what do you do? I'm a cloud engineer. And I'd like for people to have a better understanding of it. Because when I said I'm a cloud engineer or I'm an Azure administrator, the confusion on people's face was crazy. But I think, when I moved into like cloud security, it was easier to say cybersecurity. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, we know, passwords, phishing scams, at least they know something about the area, right? But yeah, I just wish people would know a little bit more about the cloud in general, because it is part of all of their lives. They watch Netflix, they use Google Drive, they use OneDrive, they use iCloud for everything, and they still don't know what cloud is in general. And also, some people might like have a little understanding of, yeah, I use iCloud. Oh, so are you the guys that store the pictures on my phone? No, we're working with infrastructural tools. We're working with platform as a service, working with software as a service. We're working with large scale cloud solutions. And you think I'm putting your pictures on the cloud? That's not what's happening. So I think if we're talking about general understanding of stuff, yeah, like layman terms, like non-technical people who don't work in tech or don't know much about it, just know certain things, so I don't have to explain it. And if we're talking about like people in tech, or maybe people in other parts of tech that want to understand more about, that don't fully understand the cloud yet, I would just say understanding how valuable it is for pretty much everyone that's going to use it. Like if you're in tech support, you're going to use it. If you're a cloud developer, if you're a software developer or software engineer, you're going to use it to push out your code. If you're in cybersecurity, you're very likely to at some point be using cloud for maybe cloud security tools or services, or maybe Sentinel, or your SIM tool, or whatever the case is. So very like cloud is so much. It is not just one thing, and there is no cloud engineer whose role is exactly the same as someone in another role. It's so vast and so different, so many different technologies and tools, and it would be nice if people understood a little bit more about what it is. And I guess that is kind of what YouTube is for. Search it up. You might see Venicia talk about it a little bit more on her channel.
Yeah, I mean, that resonates so well. At least for you, it's like phishing scams or password reset. For me, it's like, oh, antivirus. It's like, okay. Like when it comes to cybersecurity. But I find it much easier to say cybersecurity than cloud security. It's like, what, isn't the cloud secure? That's the question I got from an executive in an organization. Like, what? What kind of job is that? Isn't the cloud secure? Like,
that's so funny.
Okay. Yeah. No. But so I want to ask, so you have had some recent work changes, life changes, super exciting stuff coming up. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about that? What are you focused on now? Inform us.
Yeah, I'm sure. So it's been about 3 months since I left my role as cloud and M365 security engineer at a large bank in the UK. And I left to focus on content, to make more content, to help more people, and to do more online. Since then, yeah, I've been doing a lot with the podcast, getting great guests on, just doing a lot more stuff in terms of, we started a newsletter. We started loads of stuff with the channel, but people didn't listen to me when I said, I'm going to go back to working in tech. I just need some time to focus on working on this stuff. It is hard to balance creating content at a high level, like quality stuff, with working 9 to 5. And I needed some time to focus on doing that. So that's what I did. It's been great. It's been fun. Been really enjoying it, but I will be going back eventually. And yeah, I do want to deepen my knowledge in cloud and in cloud security. I do want to get back working in this space, and I certainly will. But in the meantime, I will be making lots of content on Caleb Oni Certified on the channel on YouTube about what I've learned in my almost 3 years working in this industry. And I will be continuing to get loads of great guests who have years and years and years of experience onto that channel to share their knowledge with people who are aspiring tech workers, or people who are in their early careers, or even people who've been around. it could be super valuable stuff. So it's currently where I'm at.
I love it. I love it. And I mean, I love your podcast. You've briefly mentioned the YouTube channel and the newsletter. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what people can expect on the newsletter itself and how they can sign up for this? Like how do they reach you? How do they get in contact with you across all your platforms?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, of course, YouTube, Caleb Oni Certified, and also the Tech Certified podcast, which has had so many amazing guests, including one cyber queen right here. So yeah, check it out. But also the newsletter, we have something called a cloud assessment quiz. And if you take that, you'll automatically sign you up for the newsletter. It's basically a free quiz, guys, completely free, where you take it and it gives you some suggestions on how to go about your cloud journey, right? It gives you a score saying you must be ready. You're not ready just yet, or you've got some work to do, and it can give you some great suggestions on exactly what you need to do. So I'll link it, but yeah, that will also sign you up to the newsletter, and the newsletter will give you updates on great content to do with getting into tech, and yeah, just like content on or ratings on things that can help you on your journey.
I love that. And I love the idea of that quiz. I think it can be super helpful to people who like just want to figure out where they are right now, and like something that they might like or might want to focus on. I absolutely love that. Yeah, so we will definitely link it and then you guys go and check it out and go and fill it in. I think it's super helpful. So now let me ask you maybe a final question or so, depending on how you answer this one. What do you want to be known for in life, or how do you want people to know you and remember you and think of when they hear your name?
Wow. Mad question. Impact. I think I want to be known as someone who used his God-given gifts, talents to help people. A positive force. I don't want to sound like one of the Avengers. Someone who, yeah, really helps other people. I also want to just be known for someone who stands on his beliefs. I'm a Christian. I'm very serious about my faith. In fact, it reminds me of a story about like even at work or I think people who believe sometimes scared to share that they believe something. I want to be known for someone who stands on his belief, regardless of what room I'm in. There was a work kind of situation where we had like a board, right? Like a PowerPoint, right? Like a square. And it told you to put 5 pictures of things that represent you. And I put 4 things, and then I put Jesus is the way in the middle. And then the 4 things were, editing. And so they went around, everyone talked through your 5 things. And I was like, editing. They're like, oh, cool. This, oh, cool. Jesus is the way in the middle. And I was like, this is the most important thing. I didn't really hear much, but I am very like strong about standing on that and standing on my belief. And I do that on YouTube. I do that at work. I do that wherever I am, because that is me. And so when I talk about what I want to be known for, yeah, I want to be known for someone who helps people in tech, who helps people in life. But I also want to be known as a believer, as someone who believes in God and who shares his belief with others. So that's what I'd say.
That is amazing. And honestly, it's so inspiring. And I can honestly say, like, since I think the first time you and I connected on Instagram and then over on YouTube and then started communicating and DMing, it's like, it's such a good energy from you and such a good vibe and such a good person that you are. It really feels so welcome, warming, and free going, and really just genuine, So I think that from my experience, and I'm sure from the experience of all of your viewers and of all of the people who you impact through your content and through all of the knowledge that you share and everyone that you interact with, I'm sure that you leave them with such good feelings, vibes, energy, and so much knowledge. So with that, I really want to say thank you so much for coming onto the show and chatting with us and for being a guest over here. We've loved having you.
Of course. Thanks so much, Venicia, the Cyber Queen and the Cyber Queen community. Thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
This is Cybersecurity Uncomplicated, and I'm your host, Cyber Queen.